Yeah. Hello, this is Rudy Giuliani. Welcome to Live with, and we sure are live tonight. Let's begin with the breaking report. Breaking a couple hours ago. Uh, uh, this is this is leaks rather than hard facts, but it sounds kind of accurate. That there's a great deal. I think these are hard facts. There's a great deal of debate now about whether to bring this indictment within the district attorney's office. Uh, Bragg is undergoing a great deal of pressure from his assistant district attorneys, and I would imagine probably outsiders and advisors that this might very well be a mistake. He's also probably getting a certain number of people encouraging him to bring it. I mean, there are, and you probably have confronted it, and I have, insane, irrational, completely crazy Trump haters who would drag down the Constitution, the laws, the world to get Trump and brag down or anything else. And the idea that they might lose this case would never occur to them. After all, they've already lost numerous. The whole think of it. The whole Russian was a complete farce, paid for by Hillary Clinton. Indeed, exactly the crime that Bragg is trying desperately to prosecute here, she committed. So if he wants to prosecute this crime, he can go get Hillary. Hillary paid $1.1 million for the Steele affidavit, and the Steele affidavit is a campaign document, a campaign oppo research document trying to destroy Donald Trump, trying to get him prosecuted for a crime he didn't commit. It has now been entirely discredited and proven to be totally untrue and paid for, admittedly. Well, that's a false document filed in pursuance of a campaign contribution. In the case of Trump, both of those things are questionable. And it may not have even happened since it's all based on the testimony of a serial liar who was thrown out of the U.S. Attorney's Office because they couldn't stand putting him on the witness stand because it would be embarrassing to the integrity of their office. Isn't it embarrassing to the integrity of the DA's office if Bragg has left that office with any integrity? So we'll get to that shortly, but I first want to cover the other main story today, which, of course, doesn't get the attention it deserves in the crooked press that we have, which is so disastrous to the future of this country. I mean, it's among the tripartite things that have destroyed our democracy. One of them being the censorship of the press, which is equivalent to being in a communist, Nazi, or some form of authoritarian government. The seizure of education, which is now not education at all, at least public education, but indoctrination in whether they know it or not in Marxism. And the third is the destruction of our justice system, where there are clearly two systems of justice, and the every day the Biden crime family walks around free is testament to that, isn't it? While others are pursued for crimes that either don't exist, frame ups, or extensions of laws that twist you into a pretzel. I just described to you a nice, clear case like this against Hillary Clinton. It's not even thought about. Uh, well, today, that remarkable investigative, the brave, fearless, and wonderful Miranda Devine, who who is following up her best-selling book, The Hard Drive from Hell, with additional discoveries about the criminality of the Biden crime family. By the way, this is I'm not taking anything away from Miranda because you got to dig this out, and everybody tries not to give it to you. But finding crimes on the Bidens is, it's like it's not like shooting fish in the barrel because it's hard to do. But I mean, there's an endless. This this will go on for years. They committed years, like 30 to be specific. And if you want a little guide to that, Hunter tells you that right in the hard drive. For 30 years, For 30 years, I've been paying all the expenses of this family and giving 50% of my income to Pop. Just want you to remember that because nobody wants to confirm. Those are the words in text of Joe Biden to his daughter as he prepares her for what will presumably be her role as a, well, like a lot of other members of the Biden family, as bag people. We just found out that the sister-in-law got a chunk of cash from the Chinese communist, the sister-in-law with whom he was having an affair. Well, I don't know if he was having an affair with her. I mean, they say this all began after Beau Biden died, and that's when the brother started sleeping with his sister-in-law. And then somehow she became a massive drug addict. Her exposure to a drug addict, and they did it in the home with minor children. They did that and other things to such an extent that there's a point at which he admits to his father that he's a danger to the children. You haven't heard that, right? That's hidden also. As well as on his hard drive, you'll find child pornography, for which nothing has been done because even children don't matter when you have to protect a massive crook like Joe Biden. Well, Dr. Gail Loft is a former Israel Defense Forces lieutenant colonel. And I am quoting that his article. I interviewed it today on my radio show. And he details that he gave to the Department of Justice in 2019 that he says they covered up, buried, and suppressed as they incriminating information, incredible incriminating information that I gave to the Justice Department and Robert Costello in early 2020 that the several other witnesses did. A group of prosecutors from New York and were turned away, even though they had and specifically laid out incriminating evidence against Joe Biden. Oh, this was way back in 2017 or 18 that they approached the U.S. Attorney's Office and told them some things, massive Ukraine bribery case, and was shunned away by the Southern District. I mean, this is a practice that has gone on constantly. Mr. Bobulinski was interviewed once, said he had detailed information about Joe Biden's involvement. FBI never returned. A woman who had who claimed to have clear evidence and was willing to demonstrate it of offshore bank accounts of the Bidens in which they got considerably more money than we actually know about, and she was never interviewed by the FBI. And here we have Mr. Gail Loft, a former Israel Defense Forces. His lawyer describes this now, several years later. He said that 4 years ago, Loft informed the Department of Justice that the Chinese state-controlled energy company, that means controlled by the Chinese Communist Party, CEFC, $100,000 a month to President Biden's son, Hunter, and $65,000 a month to brother Jim in exchange for their FBI connections. I said FBI connections. And use of the Biden name to promote China's Belt and Road Initiative around the world. The Belt and Road Initiative, you should understand, is intended to displace the country of which the Bidens are citizens as the leading country in the world. I don't know what their citizenship means, because with that citizenship seems to come no loyalty, but with a program intended to undercut the United States of America. That's the family of our sitting president. That's the statement of a lawyer for a former Israel Defense Forces lieutenant colonel who wants to offer that testimony. And he says he learned of the scheme because of his own relationship with Hunter Biden's partners, Patrick Ho and Yi Jinping. Yi Jinping was the chairman of CEFC. Patrick Ho is the man that Hunter refers to as the effing spy chief of China. And Yi Jinping is the man that Hunter refers to as the richest man in China. There's no doubt they were partners of his. We have the documents, we have the text, we have pictures, and we have the famous document in which it says 10%. That's the deal with the spy chief of China and the richest man in China, also one of the high level members of the Chinese Communist Party. Doesn't it strike you as totally impossible that the president of the United States, as recently as a few years ago, his family was Chinese communists? Are we in some like make believe world constructed by China, aided by American traders and brainwashed people and people who are so oval that they can't see in front of their face? From 2015 to 2018, Loft organized energy conferences with Hunter's partner, Patrick Ho, and with his think tank, the China Energy Fund Committee, which is for CEFC and for the Chinese Communist Party. Both Yi and Ho confided to Loft that Hunter had an informant because they had purchased access to the FBI, remember, in the FBI, or possibly formerly in the FBI, but still with contacts within the FBI and well-placed, who they paid lots of money to. And they received sealed law enforcement information from him. And he had a nickname, One Eye. And he warned that Manhattan federal prosecutors were going to prosecute him in the Patrick Ho case. And Yi fled and sort of set up Ho so that Ho would have to take the rap. And Yi paid $1 million to Hunter at exactly that time. Now, that payment is documented. The $1 million from the high-level Chinese communist to Hunter Biden. That's a documented payment. So it's a little hard to do all the arithmetic here. I went through it with Miranda because there are a lot of different places that you find this. But let me give you an idea of the kind of money that the crooked Biden, because it's a crooked family. It's not just Joe. Joe's the boss, the top guy, like a mafia family. But there are a whole bunch of crooks running around the Biden family and perverts. But there are a lot of perverts. There's certainly one pervert and one turd, you know. But in any event, you got a bunch of crooks. So Hunter was paid $1 million to represent Ho, which entailed contacting his FBI sources on Ho's behalf and engaging another attorney. Of course, Hunter wouldn't do the work. He really can't function as an attorney. He spends, half his time in a closet smoking crack in a home with minor children. He also walks around that home nude and does a lot of other things that constitute, as he says to his father, danger to the children. His father, their grandfather, does nothing, similar to his disavowal of his other grandchild. The CEFC paid a further $4.9 million to Hunter and Jim Biden over a 14-month period during like 17 or so during that period of time. According to Hunter, that would be encompassed within the 50% that goes to of the income that goes to Joe. And then an additional $1 million was funneled from a Chinese company affiliated with CEFC. And that money went, in this case, to Hunter Jim, Haley Biden, the sister-in-law that Hunter was having the affair with, and smoking massive amounts of crack with in a home with minor children. And a fourth Biden, unknown caller, not revealed, who got a big chunk of cash from the Chinese communists. This guy, Loft, was interviewed for 18 hours on March 28 and 29 of 2019 and turned this information over to the Federal Bureau of Investigation. And they have never, ever followed up on it. They had this information since March of 2019. In other words, they had this information when they got the hard drive. which would have clarified to a large extent what was on the hard drive, and also should have, if they had any interest in investigating the Bidens as people where serious criminal charges like this were leveled, which means they would have searched the hard drive very carefully to see if there's corroboration for this. And of course, the hard drive is replete with corroboration for it. They also, having known this, when I went to them in January of late 2020, and gave them a person who was willing to come forward and give them chapter and verse on the Biden's offshore bank accounts, and was under threat of death, instead of humoring us that they were going to interview her and never doing it and putting her at risk of death, they would have interviewed her. Her information is kind of corroborated by this, and she corroborates that information. And they had a lot more than I ever realized when Barr told me to go give this information to Pittsburgh, and then Barr covered it up. Yes, Barr covered it up. Not a good guy. A lot of problems. Sitting on the hard drive while Trump got impeached, sitting on the hard drive while Biden got elected. The American people never got the information they deserve. Never found out that there's a crook for 30 years. What kind of attorney general does that? Why? What's his motivation? What's he afraid of? What do they have on him? These questions have to be asked to protect our country against this happening again, and to kind of unravel this corrupt group of vipers that are running our country and running it into the ground and running it for the benefit of China. Trump's slogan and motto and practice was America first. We're getting close to Biden is China first. Well, they sure paid enough for it, right? Coincidence do we have to small? So I'm going to tell you, take my word for it. 31 million plus to the Bidens from the Chinese communists. I just counted up 14. I could do the rest for you if you wanted. 31 million plus to the crooked Biden family. At around that time, that 50% of all my income goes to Pop. Over 30 years. That's when Pop was a senator. That's when Pop was a vice president. Those things are called bribes. So let's not play, Democrat euphemism, okay? We're not in 1984. We tell the truth. And this doesn't even get investigated. Well, this is a massive disclosure of a mole in the FBI that was being used for the benefit of the Chinese communists. The intermediary being we're going beyond bribery now, aren't we? What are we getting close to? I don't know. It smells like, it looks like, it sounds like treason, doesn't it? Selling out America, maybe, call it that. This is reprehensible with a capital R. There got to be something wrong with us if we don't do something about this. We may very well be finished if we can't summon up enough moral indignation and enough desire to protect our country to do something about this selling us out to China and having a president that has sold us out to China. Evidence that shows that he sold us out to China, well, then we're never going to be able to defend ourselves against a cunning adversary like China. The future is inevitable. It's the future that Soros wants for us. It's the future that Obama wants for us. Going way back when he got trained. Yes, he was trained by communists. What do you think Saul Alinsky was? A Jesuit priest? He's a thorough, dedicated, American-hating communist. Soros hates America. He hates American nationalism. He's the biggest funder of everything. Black Lives Matter, Antifa, Biden, and the DAs who are destroying America by getting so many of our people killed, in particular young black people. St. Louis, Chicago, New York. When are we going to wake up? And our reaction to this is tepid. Even the Republicans in the House. I mean, Comer's the best we got, but I guess I don't know how much time we have. I don't know how much time we have. How much selling out can we do to China and it becomes irreparable? I mean, we for example, letting the balloon fly all over America and photograph our nuclear facilities, which is what they did, accompanied by the United States Air Force, and only destroyed after they got every single picture they wanted. That's irreparable. China now has that information. Didn't have it before. Giving up the Bagram Air Base 400 miles from China by Milley and Biden. And by the way, problem with China too. This is the guy who was going to tell China if Trump was going to attack them. I mean, that alone should have led to his being kicked out of his office and put under investigation. But he sat back and he not only that, he went and defended it. He said it was strategically fine to give up air base 400 miles from Trump. What do you think we are? As stupid as we appear to be by electing them? I mean, for that, you should rip the stars off his shoulder and the medals off his chest. A base 400 miles from China that was just modernized, that's considered an excellent air base. It has the capacity to put missiles there that would arrive, in 2 minutes, exaggerated a bit. Putting us in a position that the Palestinians are with Israel, where they're right next to Israel, and that Iron Dome's got to be perfect to protect Israel. We give it up. You have to love China to do that. Now we're looking for a base 1,000 miles from China. So don't tell me it wasn't strategic. If 400 miles isn't strategic, what are we looking for a base 1,000 miles from China? And the minute you do that, and then I see on the other side of the ledger, you got millions of dollars. I don't know. I got to be some kind of fool not to figure out you sold out. And you can't afford to be a fool. You got to protect your own people, your family, your own people. You don't get room to be a fool. But we are. I don't know when we're going to wake up to the enormity of the Biden crimes. The longer we take, the more permanent damage is done. That can't be fixed. We can't fix giving up that airbase. And we can't fix the information they got. We got to prevent it. We got to stop it. Well, the latest news, as I told you, on the other front, which is the fascist activities of the DA's office. They're fascist because when you bring a case for political purposes that has no justification under the law, which just doesn't, then that is the justice system. That's what Nazis do. That's what communists do. That's what authoritarians do. That's what China does. That's what the New World Order would do at the direction of Soros and Klaus Schwab, Obama. Don't follow their ideology and they'll destroy you. They'll censor you, take your job away, put you in jail, and feel justified prosecuting you for false charges, which is what they do to Republicans and Trump people. And exactly what this guy who is responsible for an awful lot of deaths in New York, Alvin Bragg, because he is a lawless prosecutor who should have been removed on day one, took the oath of office, said he would enforce the laws, and then put out a document basically saying he would enforce half of them, including things like armed robbery, resisting arrest, which would get every cop beaten to hell. Should have been removed then if we had honest, reputable, intelligent, loyal people in the job of mayor and governor. But we don't. We have slimy Democrat politicians in those jobs who don't have the guts to do enough to protect their own people. This guy has loosed on the city of New York thousands and thousands of predators. When you see people thrown on the subway, good chance it was somebody he let out that did it. And we have a governor and mayor who sit back and they don't say anything about it. They complain about the bail law and they complain about this. They don't do anything about it. They complain about it. It gets worse and worse and worse. Worse and worse and worse. Well, now they're holding up the indictment. And there is a rumor and a statement that's attributed to Bragg. I don't know how accurate this is, that he never said he was going to indict, that Trump said that. I mean, what? Yeah. Dr. Maria asked, well, why did he go to a grand jury? Exercise. For exercise. In fact, when Bob Costello testified, there were 8 of his assistant DAs there. If I had 8 of my assistant U.S. attorneys in a grand jury, in any grand jury, for any case, 6 of them have been fired. I'd have picked the 6 that I figured had nothing to do with the case and throw them out. And if they were all working on a case, I'd throw 6 out. I might throw them all out for working on one case. You have to run a district attorney's office. You have to run a U.S. attorney's office. What a bum. I did that job. I know that job cold. I did it better than anybody else. Go look at my record. This guy should have been thrown out on day 1, day 2, day 3. If we had people as a mayor and governor who cared about the lives of our citizens and not about themselves. It's disgraceful. And it's sad what the people in New York swallow. It's sad how brainwashed they are, voting Democrat, 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 Democrat. Wasn't a riot in New York. The last riot was under a Democrat mayor, and the next one we got was under another Democrat mayor. We don't have riots when we don't have Democrat mayors. We also don't have crimes at this level. Look at Chicago. 50 years of Democrats. Every weekend is a Vietnam for young black kids. And they don't give a damn. The politicians don't do anything about it. It's not a damn thing. And the people vote like Pavlov's dogs. Wake up. Don't you care about your children? I do.
Mayor, a person day in a row that they've canceled a meeting of the grand jury. Anything that we can read from that?
No, not yet. There are people who say that he's rethinking the indictment. There are people who say that he's saying he never decided to indict. Those would all be good signs. And, you know, beside Donald Trump and beside everything else, the country is the most important thing, and the justice system is the most important thing. And any way he gets himself to not doing this is a plus. To lie or wants to say, I never did this, or I never did that, and I never did this. Look, he lies anyway and gets us killed. Maybe he should lie and at least do something right. So let him lie. I mean, he should be removed. Not because of Trump. He should have been removed a year ago. A lot of people would be alive. If we had a real district attorney who actually prosecuted people, didn't turn down 52% of the felonies and make them misdemeanors and let people go out on bail, crime wouldn't have gone up 27% the first year he was in office, and the first year Adams was in office. And 22 with the genius of a governor we have, Hochul. I mean, all she's waiting for is the money she can get from the Buffalo Stadium. We'll go through that one at some point if you want. I mean, my state is so corrupt, I don't know what the hell you do about it until you get a U.S. attorney in Albany who goes after criminals. The U.S. attorney in Albany does, but I don't know. I think if I was the U.S. attorney in Albany, I'm not going to tell you, I won't predict for you how many of the people in the Assembly and the state Senate I could prosecute. I won't predict it. That isn't fair to predict it. I think you know what I'm saying. I mean, it's a den of thieves, conservatively speaking. And then an ethics complaint has finally been filed against Bragg. That he's is the day after Alan Dershowitz, professor emeritus Harvard Law Review, said on Fox News that Bragg should be investigated for bringing into the proceeding former Trump attorney Michael Cohen, who became a star witness, given the fact that he has already been adjudged to be a serial liar and not workable as a witness in federal cases. And you got to realize how stupid this case is. This is a case in which this guy who has downgraded 52% of his felonies to misdemeanors, where people are getting killed and beaten and robbed and raped and tortured and everything else. This is a misdemeanor. No, it really isn't. I'll show you that in a second. But if it was anything, it was a misdemeanor, and he's trying to make it into a felony. This could be the only time he ever did it. And the misdemeanor, listen to this, the misdemeanor is filing a false entry in your books. This is a non-disclosure agreement. I don't know if this is even a business record covered by this little misdemeanor statute. So that's the first challenge. It may not even be a misdemeanor. Let's call it an arguable misdemeanor with a good legal argument that the statute doesn't apply to this situation, nor is there any proof that Trump did the entry. Even lying Cohen doesn't know that. Sat there and watched who entered it. Finally, has to be that the statute of limitations has run on this. It's a 5-year statute. This was done in 2017. 18 to 19 to 20 to 21 to 22 to 23. It's run by about a year. So then they say, no, it's not just a second-degree misdemeanor. It's a felony because if you do it in pursuance of another crime that's a felony, it's a felony. Well, the only other crime you can think of is it's supposed to be an illegal campaign contribution. Number one, that would be a federal illegal campaign contribution. So let's begin with the problem with that. How does the New York State legislature pass a law that covers a federal? It doesn't. It has no jurisdiction. And when they say crime, they mean a New York crime. And they have to, because they have no ability to pass federal crimes. So it can't latch itself onto a federal crime. I hope you understand what I'm saying. There's no jurisdiction to do it. I mean, the judge would have to be the most corrupt Democrat to not throw that case out. Do we have a few of them? I don't know. We'll find out. But would it eventually be thrown out? Almost impossible that it wouldn't be. That's absurd. That you're going to latch this on to, the state is going to latch this on to a federal felony. And that when the law in New York says, if it's in pursuance of a felony, they mean a federal felony, which they have no jurisdiction over. Okay, I hope you understand that. But here's an easier one to understand. It's not a violation of the federal campaign finance law. This is what John Edwards was prosecuted for. It was acquitted. Numerous commissioners of Federal Elections Commission, president and former, numerous lawyers have written articles saying, because this was a very similar situation, when the payment is for personal reasons, even if it helps you politically, even if personal reasons isn't the prevailing reason, just one of them, then it's not a campaign contribution. Well, of course it was for personal reasons. This was to spare, without any doubt, the domestic embarrassment and damage done by an allegation. That was the primary purpose of it. Even Cohen says that in one of his many versions. And finally, it all depends on the testimony of maybe one of the biggest liars we've ever seen in federal court. So big, the Southern District of New York threw him out. This, not only in cases involving Trump, which they declined, but other cases, they just wouldn't use him as a witness. And they didn't want him to get any benefit from cooperation at the time of his sentencing. Spoke out against him. Now, do we have the most devastating thing of all? I mean, Bob Costello did a magnificent and very brave thing going into that grand jury. And boy, it was hostile as hell. And the assistant DAs, all 8 of them, who apparently have nothing better to do, he came there with 330 something text messages that proves that Cohen is lying. They only used 3, none of which had to do with Cohen lying. They wouldn't ask him any questions about Cohen's lies, how Cohen said things like, "One thing I can tell you is that I'm never going to spend one day in jail. Never. I will do whatever the F I have to do, but I will never spend one day in jail." Cohen repeated that numerous times and made it clear he would lie, cheat, steal, and do anything to stay out of jail. Does it explain his perjury against Trump? He then went on to tell them that he wanted to commit suicide. That's corroborated by his conversations with a minister to the same effect. And then Cohen and his partner confronted him numerous times with, did he have any kind of evidence against Trump because that could help him? And he said, no, he did not. And he explained that he put this money out himself, basically because he wanted to ingratiate himself to Trump. He had always been the bad boy, the guy that everybody wanted to fire every minute he was there, and Trump had a soft spot for him. And he did this really so he could get a job in the White House ultimately, which, by the way, is a famous incident where he lied. And remember, there's a sort of unwritten rule among prosecutors, among decent prosecutors, not wouldn't include Bragg in this, that when you use these turncoats, which on the other side, you use these turncoats, you don't fall in love with them. And you're very hard and difficult on them, which the DA's office wasn't at all. I mean, they met with him like 18 times. And you let them know, now that you're going to tell the complete truth, and you lie now, you're going to go to jail forever. You can get prosecuted. I'll prosecute you. I used to tell people, I'll prosecute you personally. You want me to go in court and prosecute? I don't lose. So you better damn tell the truth. I mean, I've said this to people who have murdered 13 people. Said it to mafia killers. Said it to terrorists. Said it to white-collar criminals. I'm not going to let the integrity of my office be besmirched by one of these creeps who's, led a life of crime, wants to give us information to put a bad guy in jail, fine. But you better tell me everything you did. You got to tell the complete truth, and you lie from now on, and I'm coming after you. And I did it 3 times. And when I tell you I'm going to prosecute you, I know how to do it in a way that probably makes you urinate. When I see Tacopino said he could cross-examine him and get him to, I don't know if Tacopino ever got anybody to confess on the witness stand. I did. Cohen wouldn't even be an achievement. Wouldn't even be an achievement. The guy is a serial liar. Now, think about this. He's the key witness for the prosecution. They're depending on him. The day Costello testifies, big fat mouth, wannabe gangster, decides to go on television. First of all, the DA doesn't have enough control over him to say, keep your big fat mouth shut. My witnesses never went on television before they testified. Do you know how damn incompetent that is as a prosecutor? You should just get fired as a prosecutor for doing that, for letting your witness go on television. You're going to screw up. You're not going to win your case on television, jackass. You win it in front of a jury. You know what a jury is? Well, you probably don't, because you don't try cases. You let everybody out. This guy should be disbarred, thrown out. He's horrible. But he goes on television, some kind of wannabe. I mean, I know the way they talk. I don't think he really talks like that. I think he affects that to try to sound like he's a tough guy. Well, I don't know. Cohen, the Costello's a big liar. He's not telling the truth. And now, I never signed no attorney-client waiver. Think I'm stupid? Yeah, you are actually, but we're not. We're not talking about your intelligence. We're talking about your integrity. Neither exist actually. But I never signed any attorney-client privilege waiver. And then, within 1 hour, Costello appears on the Tucker Carlson show.
This is epic. Yeah,
it is epic. Yeah, he holds up a document and it has Jackass's signature on it. And people witness that. A whole bunch of assistant U.S. attorneys, like they're lying, right? Not only that, everything Costello says, if you went to trial, there's a witness that was his partner was there, who knew Cohen for 20 years and corroborates every single part of Costello's telling the truth. But imagine that. You go on, you compound your already significant, unbelievable credibility problems.
Well, the phone lines are moving. Before that, Mayor, maybe give us a little background. I mean, you've known Robert Costello for many, many years, and he has been a prominent attorney for quite some time, but I'm not sure he's had as much attention as he's had this past week, maybe a few other times.
He hasn't. He's a graduate of Notre Dame and Fordham. When he was in his second year of law school, he was my student assistant when I was an assistant U.S. attorney. This is way back in the 1970s. He then went on and had a very, very distinguished career. His first in law practice at Dewey Ballantyne. He then came to the United States Attorney's Office, not when I was U.S. attorney. So I didn't hire him. Another U.S. attorney did, and he was a very successful assistant U.S. attorney. He rose to the level of assistant chief of the criminal division. Prosecuted many, many important cases, supervised many cases, and then in his law practice, he's had a long list of very, very high profile, or if not high profile, very significant cases. But he represented George Steinbrenner for a long time during George Steinbrenner's travails and got him out of trouble, actually. And he represented Leona Helmsley, if I recall correctly. And I've remained friendly with him all for the longest time because we're both Yankee fans. But then we did some cases together. And then he represented me. And of course, you will remember that he and I are the ones who got the hard drive. He was representing me, and Mr. Mac Isaac sent the letter to me, but Bob was intercepting my mail then and going through it to try to weed out the significant things because I was in Washington representing President Trump. And he called me and he felt that this letter was worth following up, even though it could be crank mail. And he did. He spent maybe 4 or 5 days researching it, talking to him. And then he called me back and said, I think you better pay attention to this. I think this is real. And then I did. And we got the hard drive. And then his son actually helped greatly in our putting it all through it. And we used our expertise and abilities as former assistants and defense lawyers, contacts to verify it ourselves. And then we presented it to the several newspapers. After 5 days of analysis, finally took it after they independently verified. If it wasn't for me, Mac Isaacs and Bob Costello, and I'd say Bob deserves a lot of the credit for this, nobody would ever know about that drive, and these crooks would have gotten away with it because nobody believed all this substantial brought up. In fact, what they tried to do is destroy me as a result of that. So Bob is a hell of a patriot and is doing this because he is completely outraged at this kind of process. Any decent lawyer would be outraged at this prosecution. Here from lawyers, you know, who represented El Chapo, a lawyer who represented El Chapo, who says he hates Trump, saying this is the end of our criminal justice system if Bragg brings a case like this. I mean, you may feel happy it's happening to Trump, but it can happen to you next. Once they becomes endemic, I mean, you become a fascist state. Once they start bringing phony cases. Once the criminal justice system is politicized, it remains that way until some massive hero comes along and changes it, because it takes a lot of guts to change it. We can't let this happen. What we do about it exactly, except what we're doing right now. And if it does happen, make it known that this is an outrage and vote them out of office and stuff like that. But I mean, it's a shame that we've come to this. It's a shame that this is even being considered. I mean, that alone, I mean, even if Bragg now makes the right decision, which, you know, for the wrong reasons, I'll take it for the wrong reasons. For any reason, I'll take it. But still a great deal of damage has been done. And, you know, the idea that the other two cases are stronger, that's complete nonsense. The other two cases may actually be weaker. I mean, they're just as lawless, just as based on no violation of the law. The January 6th case, my God, that we should start looking at the Democrats for that one and start prosecuting that was involved there. And the lies and the exaggerations and the failure to turn over 40,000 hours of tape, and Pelosi failing to turn over whatever the hell she did to make sure that this wasn't policed correctly. And the murder of Ashley Babbitt. Well, in any event, we got some calls. Babes, we got some calls. I mean, I got a few other things to cover here, like Joe Biden's weak defenses. Excellent editorial in the Post pointing out that the guy is selling our country out to China. They just don't draw the conclusion, not the Post, the Wall Street Journal. They just don't draw the conclusion that he was paid to do it. We have an underpowered Air Force. China now has a bigger Navy. We have a shrinking U.S. Army. And in real dollars, we're reducing our defense spending while China has passed our Navy and is headed past our Army. I mean, how do we put up with this? Some compare Mr. Biden to Jimmy Carter as he presides over growing threats and hot inflation. But that's unfair to Mr. Carter, who shook off his illusions about the Soviet Union late in his term and began the defense buildup that Ronald Reagan accelerated. Yeah, let's see if he begins a defense buildup against his patron, China. Yes. This is Rudy.
Rudy, are you able to hear me, sir?
I hear you fine.
Oh, there was technical problems there. My apologies. I'm very excited about being able to call into the show here. I would listen all the time on WABC, but I'm not able to call in because I'm working. I think a lot of people are in the same boat. So having these nighttime shows is fantastic for us working class people.
I enjoy it too. We are able to get more calls in, but go ahead.
Yeah, and I love the video too. The real thing for me, myself, I'm a video guy. I won't bore everybody too much with it, but I'm a video guy, and my dad was a video guy as well. So it's like a big thing in my family. And that's actually kind of a cool connection because he actually did the video stuff for the wedding where you married your cousin.
Well, that's good, JR. You're kind of a weirdo. Huh? Did he tell us where he came from? Because we could have recommended a good psychiatrist.
Homestead, Florida.
You hung up on him? Of course. Yeah. Well, you get a few of those.
Certainly do. So now is the time to call in. The lines are open. The lines are open. 1-646-306-8836. We've gotten a number of calls, so give us a call. and we'll put you on with Mayor Giuliani.
So I've made the point. I made the point a couple of times that the name.
Hello?
Well, we'll take this. Shall we take this or
Yes. Hi, what is your name and where are you calling from?
This is Allison, but I think you called. Did I call you or you called me?
You called in and we're probably calling you back.
You know what? I was saving the number in my phone. I didn't mean to press dial, Mr. Giuliani.
Okay. Well, you have anything to say?
I have a lot to say, but let's keep that.
Thanks for calling, Allison. If you get that, give us a call back and we'll put you on.
Allison is a good friend, I should tell you. She was a good friend, and she's called many times in WABC, and we know her for a long time. So the Audubon Society, the New York City Audubon Society, has decided to stop using the name of the founder, John James, because he was a white supremacist. And the guy who I guess who runs it now and made this decision says that symbols matter. Okay, I'm not going to fight with them over that. I don't know about Audubon, and I don't know how bad a white supremacist he was, and he was also against indigenous people, and he did things that were harmful and offensive. I can't evaluate. I don't know. I just don't know. What I do know is the Democratic Party is a heck of a lot more a symbol of white supremacy and slavery than Audubon possibly could have been. I mean, they were the repository of slavery in the 19th century, and they were the creator of Jim Crow, supporters of the Ku Klux Klan, opponents of the Civil Rights Bill in the century. Institution in America that's contributed more to slavery than the Democrat Party. Now, it may be a different group of people now, as the Audubon Society is a different group of people. But symbols matter, Mr. Wilson. So do you support changing the name of the Democrat Party? If you don't, you're a hypocrite. You're a big damn hypocrite. I don't know who you are. I hate to get you angry at me, but I don't really give a damn. Executive Director Jessica Wilson. I'm sorry, Ms. Wilson. I wish you would get on the phone and tell us, do you support the changing of the name of the Democrat Party? If Audubon's name should be pulled down for whatever, and I assume he did, I'm not questioning your integrity at all about that. It has 10,000 members. It's not really very big. I mean, the Democrat Party is a lot bigger than that. It had a lot more influence on white supremacy than Audubon could possibly have had. They helped, foster and fight a civil war to keep black people enslaved. The Democrat Party did. Its candidates supported slavery and the extension of slavery, supported the Jim Crow laws. Even as late as President Wilson, they had white supremacists, people who hated black people as president, including President Wilson of Princeton University. And they continue using the name Democrat Party. Whenever you hear about a name change, whether you agree with the name change or not, or whether you have enough information to draw a conclusion about it, find out about their integrity and honesty and whether they're hypocrites and just pure politicians. And I really would like Jessica Wilson to call us or register somewhere her opposition to the name Democrat Party, because it can't be that Audubon did more damage than the Democrat Party. And as I said, I have to assume that the people now in the Audubon Society are totally different. Also, let's say the people in the Democrat Party, although I think in a certain way they're still at the very top of the party, have a bunch of racists. I mean, they keep accusing Trump of being a racist. I mean, Biden surely is. I don't want my kids to go to school in a jungle, right? Obama was the first candidate for president. Use of the N-word all the time, right? In the home with the kid. Los Angeles schools now, the teachers have walked off the job in solidarity with the educational support workers who are unhappy with an offer of 23% pay increase. They really care about the kids, huh? There's this big debate, who should really have the final say over education, the government, the state, the teachers, and the bureaucrats, or the parents. I don't know. I don't think the teachers, the parents would walk off the job in support of a failure to give 23% pay to another union and put the children at great risk of not having a place to go during the day because the teachers aren't there. I mean, that's disgusting. I mean, it's really not, given the fact that out a year more than they had to and destroyed education and put us back about another 10 steps back to like in the 20s in math and English. And I mean, destroyed a year to 2 years of education for our children that never can be recaptured. And stayed out way long, no risk of anything from children. And they're smart enough to know that. I mean, this disease never had anything to do with children. That was a big hoax seen through by any intelligent person who's capable of overcoming, any kind of, if you're capable of any degree of overcoming brainwashing, you feel it after the third or fourth day of reading about it. The teachers knew that, and this was an excuse. I mean, look, they only work 8 months out of the year anyway. Now, I know we have to say we're not talking about all the teachers or whatever, but they empower the damn union. So yeah, there are really good teachers, but get off your fat whatever and do something about the union. The union's a communist union. The union is probably the most dangerous, the most destructive thing to our children's education that exists. And it also wants to indoctrinate them as Marxists. And our educational level keeps going down and down and down. And in the charter schools that they fight to the death to stop, the kids are doing 80, 90% better. And the parents are desperate to get there. There are like thousands more applications than spaces. And in New York, they've frozen the number, and our weak, corrupt politicians support them, even minority politicians. When minorities, 70 and 80%. And the Democrat in the legislature, 90% support the union over their own people. Everybody knows that charter schools are better than public schools. Cut the crap. There is no group, except maybe for the NEA, but that's part of it, right? That hurts our children more than the teachers' union. The LA teachers are on strike to support the bus drivers and teachers' assistants who have turned down a 23% pay increase in inflationary times, with our economy in the questionable position. They just shouldn't be allowed to strike at all. They should all be fired, like Reagan did. We'll start off with new teachers without the union. The union should be disbanded for violating the law. This is outrageous. You don't get outraged by that, boy. I don't think you care about kids. Yes, sir.
We got one more call. We have Allison back on the line. Her call had dropped somehow. So we want to make a short message here to close the show.
Okay. I closed the show.
Hi, Mr. Giuliani. I'm sorry about before. I guess my phone dropped the call. I just, wanted to say this is one of the best broadcasts you've done.
Well, I have to say something. I've never known you to be without words.
Without words?
Well, without.
That seems
I've
to be
known
the
you a
general
long
consensus
time.
about me.
I've known you a long time. You are a terrific person, by the way, and an enormously knowledgeable one. And but you talk a lot, and you talk very intelligently. So
But I talk so much that you have to go into the other room sometimes because I won't shut up.
No, that's not true. That's not true. I'm
Oh,
teasing. I'm
I
teasing.
know it is.
So give us your
Okay.
observation for tonight as we
I-
get
I
into
think
soccer
that
time.
I really like the layout. I heard a rumor and then wound up my friend was playing a joke that Alvin brought my hopes up, and then it wasn't true. During
Wow.
and yeah, and this thing with one eye, I've got my suspicions, but we don't need to talk about that.
About a mole
You know,
in the FBI.
well, I think there's probably several.
You,
But,
you think? Oh, you think one mole?
I mean,
You think it's like?
I think
You think it's like an Anna? Something like.
no, I'm like going through like different conversations I've had with agents and observations I've made over the last like 5 years, 6 years, and I've got my suspicions, but that's private for now.
Okay.
I don't want to say anything. Yeah, but no, I do. I really like this show. I love the low.
Well, I hope people do that. We got a lot of people listening in, so
Allison, keep
so far
calling
it's
in and-
been so far it gets bigger and bigger every night, and you know
I've noticed.
we've been over 100,000 now, and
we'll want to have you back on real soon, Allison.
yeah,
and
we'll
always
have you on as a
appreciate your
guest, and we'll talk about fentanyl, which you know you really
Oh,
a lot.
it's my obsessed. I know.
And well,
I know.
it should be
You're
everybody's
gonna
obsessed.
kill.
I mean, our president should care about.
It's Trank now. Trank is the new street drug they're stepping on fentanyl with, which is amplifying the effect so badly that it deteriorates the skin. It's like having MRSA. It's
I
like
know.
a flesh eating.
I know.
I mean, Dr. Ryan would be able to explain this a lot better than I.
We'll set up a special occasion next week. Okay. All right.
Okay.
Take care, Allison. God bless.
Night.
She's really a remarkable person. She's done a lot to help our government, our country. She's done a lot about drugs, and she's quite knowledgeable about fentanyl. And she is very, very knowledgeable about the FBI and the Drug Enforcement Administration, knows it deeply from the inside. And when she was saying she didn't want to talk about the FBI, it's because she's got a hell of a lot of information. But it's a shame. I shouldn't be laughing. I don't know why I'm laughing. I mean, it to me, it breaks my heart to see the FBI in this situation, and where I got a little perturbed about teachers. I do want to say that I understand that the vast majority of teachers are very, very good people, and they're trying hard. But you really gotta stand up at some point. You know, you can't stay any longer and be a man. You got to stand up and be a man or a woman. You got to be a person of integrity at some point, and you got to say, screw this union. Screw it. You're there, teacher, to help kids, and your union is there to hurt kids. And all it does, like the point of 8 years, all they do is try to protect bad teachers. They don't do anything for you, the good teacher. If they were in favor of good teachers, they would agree with differential pay. In other words, more money for the good teachers. And they'd be confident there are a lot of good teachers. And I happen to know there are. Every year I'd say, look, I'll give you you want a big raise? I'll give you a big raise. Let me evaluate the teachers. Let's set up an evaluation system we agree on. And I'll stick to it, and I'll give you one hell of a raise for the top tier teachers, and give you a good raise for the teachers, you know, pretty above average teachers, not the top tier, but above average. I'll give you a decent raise for the average teachers, and let's either have no raise or let's get rid of the ones down near the bottom. Maybe they should do something else. There isn't a profession in the world in which you can't do. Doctors, lawyers, politicians, ministers, priests, rabbis, baseball teams, football teams, the great, the really good, the better than average, the average, and the should be doing something else for a living. And the criminals. Everybody's got criminals. And when teachers have them, it's bad because they molest the children. They try to teach them all kinds of weird crap. And now we got the infiltration from people like the Attorney General's son-in-law, who's making a fortune trying to get our kids to question their sexuality. Did you know that? Did you know that the son-in-law of Garland is making millions on undercutting sex education in the schools. That's what I call it. He doesn't tell you that. Why do they disclose that? Maybe that isn't that parents that are objecting to schools and school boards could be terrorists. Terrorists. That's a real slime bag. Attorney General. Wow. Lucky he didn't become a judge, huh? Whew. I don't agree with McConnell on much, but he must have seen something in this guy. Maybe he knew about the son-in-law being a purveyor of undercutting children's sexuality and making millions off it. But then to have this guy come into office and make that like a priority so his son can make even more. And to have a Congress that does investigating that, it's really sad. Even our Republicans don't have an interest in investigating that. I don't know. Somebody's got to protect this republic. I mean, I better not be discouraged. We better be the fact that we got Jim Jordan, and I think Comer's trying hard. I'd like to see him be a little more direct, but he's got a different style, and I'm hoping that it's to build up to some really, I mean, there's so many more millions to go, Jim. I mean, come on, let's get there. I mean, I have his script. I got it sitting in my safe. I wouldn't say I got it memorized. Nobody could memorize that hard.
I just have to say, Mayor, even today, literally today, I won't get into specifics. I will see things reported on the news that I literally heard on your podcast 2.5 years ago. And I honestly, I feel this way with some of the congressional investigations. I feel like they're just so far behind still. And all they would need is a couple days with you. I share, well, I'll say, I'll speak for myself. I am concerned by the speed at which these investigations and the aggressiveness we're showing towards serious criminal activity, potential criminal activity.
I mean, I am absolutely convinced that these three phony cases, the one in Georgia and the one with the January 6th one and Bragg's, are all done in order to try to distract the news from the growing evidence that the Biden crime family belongs in a federal prison, not in the White House.
I agree. I mean, it's also
Trump.
But
It's a hell of a thing that a president's a criminal. It's a hell of a thing. I mean, it's also a hell of a thing that a president is senile. You want to close with his senility of yesterday or today? I mean, every day there are new ones where he. What
was that?
Where am I? I'm not even going to play you the one where he says his wife leaves notes on the wall of the mirror in his bathroom when he shaves. I wonder what the notes say. And I wonder if they feed him. You think they feed him, Ted, in the White House? You think?
I think he's given.
No, do you think he's capable?
Yeah. Oh gosh, I think they probably have to.
Hey, wait. He falls going upstairs. So I'm not being unfair here.
Not.
Have you ever seen anybody fall going upstairs?
No, I'm not. I'm
sure it happens, but I've never seen it.
I'm just picturing what he eats.
Look, I'm sure you've fallen, I've fallen, but I don't remember ever. I've never remember falling going up the stairs, and I never remember seeing anybody else fall. He does it he did a couple of times.
You're just reminding me about who's currently sitting in the Oval Office and what a disgrace it truly is.
Where did he sleep there? What does he do behind the desk? What do you think? Mr. President, Mr. President, Mr. President, I'm a senator. Oh, I'm a president?
Senator Biden.
I gave the Purple Heart to my uncle when I was vice president in the White House. Mr. President, your uncle was dead for 7 years before you were in the White House. Oh. And then 2 days later, he says the same thing. But you think he's getting? It's not a joke that a president has brain cells missing, significant numbers of them missing. It's even more not a joke when it gets covered up, because nobody has enough love for this country to do anything about it, including his creepy family. I mean, they got to know. They live with him. They got to know. I mean, they have to know how bad it is, right? They see him all the time. Let's try this one just to make the point, okay? Let me see. Let me make sure this is up right so you can hear it. This right here. Here you go.
It's a time for celebrating extraordinary women who made their mark in history, strengthen our nation. And like Jill, the first lady, the first full-time lady, the first lady who works full-time.
You got to be kidding me. The first full-time lady, Jill, that puts the notes on his, the one who puts the notes on his mirror in the bathroom while he's shaving, like, Joe, don't chop your nose off and stuff like that. Look, the reason it's not a joke is Putin knows it, Z knows it, the little creep in, the maniac in Iran knows it. Everybody else knows it. Obviously, Saudi Arabia knows it. That's why they made a deal with Iran to protect themselves, and China. They know that Mr. Sinai is not going to help him. He's also a massive coward. Has gotten many, many people killed that didn't have to die because of his senility, incompetence, adherence to a alien philosophy. I mean, he's either a communist or a tool of the communists. He's a tool of the Red Chinese. I'm not buying the coincidence between all the money and all the favors for China. I don't know. I come from a world in which you get too much money and you do too many favors and you're a public official, and we call it bribery. And then when you do it for 30 years, we call it racketeering. And in another, we get rid of you and put you in jail so nobody else will do it. Because we care about our country and we love our country and we don't let people sell it out just because we're afraid to stand up for what's right. Well, that's my lecture for tonight. Please join us again tomorrow night. Our podcast will be out tomorrow. Go to Rudy Giuliani CS.com. Stands for common sense. Rudy Giuliani CS.
What does the CS stand for?
Common sense, Ted. And we'll be back tomorrow night. And you get ready to call us. What's the number?
Yeah, be sure to give us a call again tomorrow. 1-646-306-8836. And that number is on the screen right now, Mayor.
I see it. This is the first night I have a. I've been looking over. You may have seen me look over like that a few times there on the side because we have a we have a monitor because we're getting very, very professional. We don't want to get too professional though, because we want to be the we want to be the broadcast that tells it to you straight and that brings you the thing elsewhere. We got a couple of big ones tonight. At least they weren't emphasized elsewhere, like the FBI mole, Mr. One Eye, and Bragg maybe going around saying he never really intended to indict. And so let's see. We'll be back tomorrow night, and between get the podcast at rudygiulianics.com, and you can listen to me tomorrow on WABCradio.com, 77 WABC at 3 o'clock. God bless America.